hope people haven't forgot what happened in Florida last year and what a major hurricane can do.
Inland hurricane warnings are in effect for central Mississippi, including Jackson, as Hurricane Katrina gets ready to make landfall as a Category 5 storm.
You have had several days warning here in central and south Mississippi that this was coming ashore.
The younger generations, when they wake up after this is over with, their lives will be changed forever.
At 4 o'clock this afternoon, MEMA began contraflow traffic, opening up the entire roadway to those folks headed out of Katrina's path.
And once again, I just have to emphasize the importance of an evacuation.
The Mississippi Department of Transportation tells us the traffic flow is about 2,300 people per hour going onto this roadway.
As you can see, the wind is picking up here. We've seen scattered showers and rain all throughout the day.
Part 1 is over. Now it's time for part 2, flooding, storm surges. Take a look at some of these cars behind me, almost completely submerged in water.
I mean, there's nothing left. There's only bricks, and that's it.
Residents have come out still battling strong winds, trying to find out exactly how their lives have been turned upside down.
That's amazing. It's just gone.
This is disaster. I mean, we have never experienced anything like this before.
Onlookers were amazed at Mother Nature's intensity and determination.
I'm from the Midwest, so I'm used to the tornadoes and the winds and stuff, but this is something else.
Hurricane Katrina has passed, but the devastation she has left behind is almost unthinkable.
Hurricane Katrina paid no attention to the warning signs. It yanked them around like rag dolls. By dawn, it was worse. Winds wreaking havoc on everything in sight. The Tire Kingdom was king of no one this day. Payless Shoe Source, not a welcome host out front, but more than inviting out back. Strip malls getting stripped to their very core. All the kids lying around had little place to go. Some of it clung to other things, just barely hanging on to. It's about 10:30 in the morning and the wind is as strong as it's been all night and all morning. In addition, the flooding is picking up, dragging much of the sides along the way. All this just a day's work for Hurricane Katrina, a major hurricane the Mississippi Gulf Coast will remember for a long time. In Biloxi, Davis Brister, WLBT News.
It looked like the fury of an angry ocean. Instead, it was widespread flooding from Katrina. With the eye of the hurricane already past us, part 1 is over. Now it's time for part 2, flooding, storm surges. Take a look at some of these cars behind me, almost completely submerged in water, up to 5-6 feet deep, and the water is only going to get higher. In D'Iberville, a few miles inland from the coast, roads were underwater, making traveling impossible.
This is amazing. I mean, this is disaster. I mean, we have never experienced anything like this before. We had a little rain, but this is a river, and you actually have to just be here to believe it.
Parking lots turned into lakes and street signs slowly disappeared. Onlookers were amazed at Mother Nature's intensity and determination.
I'm from the Midwest, so I'm used to the tornadoes and the winds and stuff, but this is something else.
Even as the rain clears and the clouds break away, the remains of Katrina will last in its path of destruction and in the memories of survivors.
Of course, the big story tomorrow will be on the coast. We will be there tomorrow, bringing you the latest on all the death and destruction. Again, 50 people have been confirmed dead in the state of Mississippi. Back to you.
Our Davis Brister rode out Katrina in Biloxi, and he brings us this report.
From distinction to devastation, Beach Boulevard in Biloxi has vanished just like that. Show me where your car was parked.
The car was parked right here.
And where's it now?
It's right over there, the Cougar.
Those who chose to welcome Katrina to the neighborhood can compare the storm to nothing else.
And I've been here for hurricanes before, but I've never seen this. It's better than TV. I said it's kind of like watching TV. I mean,
A staple of the Strip, century-old mansions. A staple, no more.
I watched the kitchen come apart piece by piece by piece.
So when the kitchen blew apart,
yeah.
Did you think you were in trouble then?
Oh, yeah.
6 hours after Katrina's strongest winds blew through Biloxi, residents have come out battling still strong winds, trying to find out exactly how this storm has turned their lives upside down.
No house left. I mean, there's nothing left. There's only bricks, and that's it.
But a little faith has already gone a long way.
Lord's Prayer and the Jesus Prayer and everything else. We just prayed. We got real good at the Lord's Prayer all night long there.
And that faith so far has not let them down, still living with a bend but don't break attitude. In Biloxi, Davis Brister, WLBT News.
This house has probably been in every magazine in the country at one time or another. You know, what happened to that column? Where is it?
There are plenty of questions along Highway 90. Jim Brazier wonders how one storm could do so much damage to an entire coastline.
Every beachfront home in Biloxi is now gone.
The now calm Gulf waters destroyed nearly everything in its way. Huge mansions ripped to shreds, the contents inside strung out along the beach.
It's a lot worse than Camille.
Even Jefferson Davis's old home, the Beauvoir, cries for help. It's still standing, but some question for how long. Is it replaceable?
I don't know about it this time. It looks really rough.
Then there's the massive multi-story President Casino, nearly a mile away from its old home, across the street on what was the Holiday Inn.
Oh, that barge back there, the boat, used to be over here where that lighthouse is. You can see just above that pickup truck.
Firefighters and police officers try to control the steady crowd.
Highway 90 is closed. Turn your vehicles around and go back.
Most are not fazed.
Everybody's just walking around. There's nothing you can really do. You can't clean up.
The devastation still has not sunk in on many coast residents. Some have still not even seen it. In short time, they'll have to face their problems, though, going down some bumpy, if not broken roads in the process.
People are going to be desperate. I mean, this is soup kitchen stuff. I mean, nobody has water or food. I mean, it's going to take a long time.
The coast will get rebuilt. Jim Brazier is sure of that. He just doesn't know if he'll be a part of it.
You know, will I rebuild? I don't think so. Will these people rebuild? I don't, probably not.
He says the coast may have lost its charm for now, but also says its residents are too resilient to let Hurricane Katrina destroy their lives. In Biloxi, Davis Brister, WLBT News.
Hey, Wilson, Stephanie, I just want to point something out to you guys. We're here on the coast of Biloxi. As you can see, we have a shot of a lighthouse here. If you can see the second line from the bottom, that's where they're estimating the water was about that high. The second line from the bottom, they're saying the storm surge was about 25 to 30 feet high. If you can imagine that, I mean, this whole area was basically all underwater. I mean, we're hearing survival stories of people swimming to safety, people swimming to the top of their roofs for safety. I mean, look at some of this destruction behind me, just houses completely flattened. We're actually under a gas station right now, which was completely torn out. But I mean, just houses were here, businesses, a lot of these, places that would rent out jet skis to people and that sort of thing. A lot of those were located right here, but no longer. I mean, as you can see, it's just completely flattened. Just a whole bunch of destruction out here, and there's so many stories to be told.
Well, that's what's left of it.
Residents of coastal Biloxi hang on to what little they have left. The morning after Hurricane Katrina, the reality of the last 24 hours sets in. This Biloxi woman and her boyfriend lost their business.
It broke my heart because the man that owns it is a very nice man, and he would do anything for anybody. And now he's got to start all over again.
The house that used to stand here was built in 1910. Now it's gone, and the owners say they've never seen this white house next door, that it must have been thrown over here during the storm. There are unbelievable stories of survival and near-death experiences.
Our house was raised 24 feet, and it was coming in in the main floor of our house, up 24 feet.
People walk around in a daze, and wild animals are a common sight. Even the mayor is in disbelief.
Watching the storm surge come in, and it reminded me of the news when I was watching the tsunami. That's what it looked like.
He says it will take casinos at least a year or more to rebuild.
Probably lost 75–80% of our tax base.
Still, there's hope behind the tears.
We have about 10 people working for us now. They don't have a job, you know, but we are going to try to build back.
Now, while we've been down here, we've met so many brave and generous people. One man gave me these Mardi Gras beads. Every year, Biloxi has a huge Mardi Gras parade, and this was one of the few things that were left on his property. He said he gave them to me as a reminder of the better times that Biloxi has seen. Back to you.
Okay.
Reality is setting in for residents of Biloxi, and let me tell you, things are not looking good here. Take a look around us. It basically looks like a bomb blew up here. Right now, it's day one of a very long cleanup.
They say they should be dead, but were saved by this man.
I think I did what everybody else would have done, hopefully. We don't know, I think it was 22 we got. I wasn't by myself, I had help, you know, but you got people hanging out the windows, hollering, screaming.
The only thing untouched by the rapidly rising water was this sign, which read, "God bless our home."
We didn't know we was only half a house. We thought we were the whole house.
All they could do was pray and hold on.
We was praying to get the eye. Yeah. So the winds would quit blowing and quit pushing water in.
Even larger structures couldn't beat Katrina's race for destruction.
This is unbelievable. If you look behind me, this is the old Grand Casino of Biloxi, but that is not its original location. Its original location is about a half-mile down the coast, as you can see from the sign behind me.
Traveling around Biloxi isn't easy. In some sections of Highway 90, it looked like Katrina had cracked the road open with a sledgehammer. Those that survived still can't believe they did.
Luck is not a word. Divine intervention, I'm telling you, is blessed. Because by all rights, everybody that stayed here should be dead.
There are so many unbelievable stories here of survival, stories of people actually swimming to safety. And we talked to the mayor earlier. He said his first priority is getting these streets cleared up because he wants to make way for emergency vehicles like fire trucks and ambulances because many more lives are still at risk. Back to you.
And this morning, Skycopter 3 flew over the Gulf Coast to survey the damage.
Here is pilot Coit Bailey in his own words.
Flying over the port of Gulfport, the water tower remained intact, but not much else did. About half-mile in from the beach, everything has been leveled, flat, destroyed. There just aren't really any structures standing anymore. You can see where the storm surge came up and deposited all this debris. We're looking at a lot of freight vehicles. They've been washed all through the downtown area. These are some of the National Guard troops that are trying to keep looters down, looking for people who need help. The bridge at Highway 90 was completely destroyed. It's going to be a major job to remove all of that concrete and debris for navigation, for ships in the area, and rebuilding it's going to be a long, long process. And as you can see, some of the barges from the port area were just washed inland. The casinos, as you know, were floating on the water, were actually picked up and deposited on top of homes and businesses. This is the back end of the Hard Rock Casino. As you can see, it has just fallen off into the water now. One of the casinos was dropped literally on top of the Holiday Inn, just absolutely crushing it. We're proceeding to the east along the beach here. These are all the old homes that were along the beach, many of them just gone. Just you can see foundations and complete devastation through this area. If you remember the aquarium, that's the aquarium right there that was in the port of Gulfport. It's been completely destroyed. This is downtown Biloxi here. As you can see, this area has just suffered a catastrophic amount of damage. It's just hard to imagine anything being much worse than this.
Coit Bailey joining us now on the set, and it's just hard, as you said, to imagine anything worse than this, the violence of Hurricane Katrina and what it did to the Mississippi Gulf Coast, Alabama, and Louisiana.
That's right, Howard. It was, the amount of damage we saw was just phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw it from the point that we left Jackson this morning, right about daylight, all the way to the Gulf Coast. And to see you know, flying for 150 miles to see that amount of damage was just incredible.
Absolutely.
I don't care how many times you see the pictures, it's still devastating every time you see it. And we've been talking to so many people on the phones tonight who had relatives who stayed behind that they can't get in contact with, and they see the pictures and they're crying. They're literally in tears on the phone saying, can you tell me what street in this, and you just can't make out streets with the devastation.
It's very difficult. We've talked to several people on the phone just asking about loved ones, and it's been very difficult not to tell them exactly what they want to know.
You've gotten more pictures too along the coast there. Tell us about it. We're going to roll that right now and tell us about what we're looking at.
Okay, yeah, this is, we shot some more footage this afternoon. This was over in the, coming from Pascagoula towards Gaucher. This is the railroad bridge there, and it's just completely removed now. That's Gaucher. This was a peninsula sticking out into the bay area there in Gaucher, headed back westbound towards Ocean Springs.
Just a slab left.
And yes, exactly. Just slabs. You would see steps leading to nowhere. Just completely destroyed.
Now, I talked to a lady from Ocean Springs, and she said, I haven't seen a lot of video from there, and this again gives us an indication of, again, just how terrible Katrina was.
That's right. The damage all the way from New Orleans to Pascagoula, it was hard to film anything because everything looked so bad. You didn't know where to turn the camera.
It's like a pretty exclusive neighborhood down here as well there. Where are we now?
This is still Gaucher. A lot of really nice homes. It was indiscriminate in what it hit. These were some apartment buildings. This would probably be on the edge of Gaucher, headed back into Ocean Springs. And this was a good ways back inland, and as you can see, it just picked the boats up and threw it right back into the apartments here.
Wow. We're hearing so many stories from people with things like they were trapped in houses and there were water and they could see debris coming at them and there was nothing much that they could do. It's amazing that so many of them survived, and look at this. It looks like splinters.
Where is this?
This is a debris field that was deposited on the railroad track. We've heard a lot of times people saying everything south of the railroad was destroyed, and you can see there in the Ocean Springs area, it pushed the debris right up to the railroad track. This is staring at the University of Southern Mississippi campus right there in Ocean Springs, just south of the Ocean Springs downtown area. And we had not seen a lot of coverage from this area because there were so many areas hit so hard that
goodness gracious.
That the more we looked, the more damage we saw.
Wow.
It's like there's no area along the Mississippi Gulf Coast that was not touched by Katrina.
That's right.
Just hard to fathom that amount of damage by one storm. Where are we headed now?
We're continuing to work our way westbound along the beach here. We're coming around the corner of Ocean Springs, and we're going to be coming up on Highway 90 in just a minute. And you can see there's just foundations with no homes.
That is absolutely incredible.
Now, we know that in Camille, there were about 6,000 homes that were lost. Everyone is saying, the governor is saying there are going to be more homes than that in this hurricane. And is that the way it looked from the air?
I have to believe that's true. There were so many homes completely demolished where you couldn't even see a trace of them, and then homes that are certainly damaged beyond repair. And it hit a different city than it hit in 1969. Right. There was just so many more structures and so many more homes and so much more development there that I have to believe that the damage is going to be much more extensive.
Governor referenced years in recovering from this, not months, not weeks, not days, but years.
I would say 90% of the structures between the beach and the railroad in Biloxi, Gulfport, Long Beach, and past Christiane are totally destroyed. They're not severely damaged, they're simply not there. The debris is stacked up in some places many feet tall, which is one of the reasons that we're having such difficulty in making speedy progress on search and rescue. That many roads continue to be impassable because they have 3 feet or 5 feet of debris in them. I can only imagine that this is what Hiroshima looked like 60 years ago. There's hard work going on down there. The Undersecretary of Homeland Security, Mike Brown, who is the director of FEMA, met me there. His deputy who is there said this is the worst destruction that he has ever seen. And when Brown asked him worse than this, worse than that, he said worse than anything he'd ever seen. We had meetings with people like Mayor A.J. Holloway and Mayor Brent War, who say simply this is worse than Camille. And in terms of its size, it is clearly worse than Camille. And while the wind speed was not as high as Camille, for whatever reason, the storm surge was far worse than in Camille. We went all through Hancock County and up Back Bay, and there's tremendous devastation a considerable way away from the beach that obviously had to be caused by the storm surge. That as the water rose in Bay St. Louis, as the water rose in Biloxi Bay, it destroyed houses and structures on both sides of both those bodies of water. Of course, the bridge on 90 to Bay St. Louis is completely gone, and the big bridge on 90 between Point Cadet, or what used to be Point Cadet, and Ocean Springs is completely gone. The railroad bridge in Bay St. Louis is also completely gone. As we observed, there was structure after structure that had survived Camille with minor damage that are simply not there anymore.
Shoppers filled their carts with necessities for roughing it without power and water.
For the most part, people's spirits are fairly good in shelters across the metro, but there's still that air of uncertainty as many wonder what's next and how they'll get there.
Over 1,000 are still here, 200 at the Trade Mart.
People are going to have to be patient. We have said prepare for weeks at this time.
Power crews spent much of the day repairing concrete power poles snapped by the winds of Hurricane Katrina. For linemen, it's becoming increasingly hard to get the gas in their trucks to get to the hardest hit areas.
At the Flying J Travel Center in Pearl, the line stretched across Highway 80. People waited in line for more than an hour.
You know, people have been getting at each other's throats, fighting with one another. I mean, as y'all saw a while ago, you know, people just cussing each other. It's been rough.
Gas is such a necessity, people are more than willing to wait it out.
Oh, lucky, I guess, because we didn't have no damage to our trailer nor my mother's house, you know, and so sorry for the people in Biloxi and Gulfport, you know, so we're blessed compared to them.
I just want you to know that when I'm thinking about how we can help this part of the world, Mississippi is on my mind. Mississippi is a part of the future of this country, and part of that future is to help you get back up on your feet.
When you live in paradise, you got to pay a price. And it is. It's a very close-knit community. All these communities here are.
You gonna build back?
Yes, I will.
Well, first of all, looking for landmarks is in no way a dismissal of the human dimension of this storm. That part can't be dismissed. It's everywhere. Now, for instance, here's one of the landmarks that many have asked me about, the Walter Anderson Museum in downtown Ocean Springs. Now, I have no official word on its condition, but at least it's still there. But just down the street in front of it, not a block away, are stacks of refrigerators ruined by the floodwaters. And not 2 blocks away from the Anderson Museum, houses have been flattened and drug out to sea by the storm surge. Downtown Ocean Springs is in pretty good shape, but just about everything along the beachfront is demolished. The swimming pool water in a beach apartment complex is brackish from the storm surge. The apartments are gone from it. Then down the street, the replica of Fort Maurepas that folks here have been working on for a few decades has fallen to the same fate the original fort may have fallen to a few centuries ago. The neighborhood around it is in the same shape as the fort, except way back there where the land rises enough not to have been topped by the surge. The connecting link between Ocean Springs and Biloxi is gone. Can you imagine the phenomenal power it took to wash away the slabs of concrete from their pilings on the Highway 90 bridge? If solid concrete couldn't stand up to Katrina, no wonder wooden houses couldn't. But as with other catastrophes, there's the occasional oddity. One house will still be standing next to a house that has been completely demolished, and for no real reason except that it is. The way the work's already started, removing and rebuilding, reminds me of fire ants that immediately set about to put things right again when you kick their mounds. We too work hard, as quickly as we can, to get things back to normal. And we post our defiance to the elements that caused all of this in big, bold letters that can't be missed, telling of our resolve, not so much for the sake of nature, but more for our own sakes, encouraging each other to continue down the long road back to normal.
People here at the Trade Mart were angry and confused today. We have actually witnessed evacuees tearing up before our cameras. Jackson police were handing out tickets today. They said they handed out about 6,000 tickets for people to return in mid-October. Some people here are getting the help that they need, and they are thankful, but many here say people are taking advantage of the Red Cross. The chance at more than $300 per person has brought so many people here, there's now a 3-week wait to get in.
Why they can't give a line for people from the coast, New Orleans? We got a reason to be in the line. And I'm tired of this. I'm stressed out with it, and it's getting on my nerves.
Many came just to see if they could get some money.
For loss of food, loss of electricity.
Even though the sign outside says no lost food help, people are still trying.
That's what all the donations are for, and I think there'll be enough money to go around.
$665.
That's how much a Yazoo City woman got for losing a few days of power.
Well, I gotta buy groceries, gotta buy clothes and stuff, and then pay bill.
Even a Jackson police officer picked up a ticket. What kind of damage did you have?
Trees, garbage.
Yeah.
A lot of shingles on my house. Damn.
There is little guilt here, as evacuees who lost everything must wait days for help.
I try to do things the right way. And when you're trying to do things the right way and you see other people coming in and they cheating the system, it makes it bad for us.
Stella Cameron says she's lived off whatever she can pick up through charities.
Mississippi has been really, truly good to us. But it's just some people that just taking advantage of the system. It's just that simple, and we're not getting the things that we are supposed to be getting to help us.
You can see where many here come from. Just take a look at their license plates.
I'm just a plain old highway patrolman working the road, day in and day out.
But there are some folks in Hancock County who consider Sergeant Roy Fullerton to be one of the heroes. About a mile down the road is the Gulf of Mexico. We're standing on what is considered to be ground zero between Waveland and Pearlington here in Hancock County. I'm standing on a slab that used to be a home. In fact, this entire neighborhood was completely destroyed. Hard to imagine anyone trying to ride out this storm, but someone did. And that's where Sergeant Roy Fullerton came in.
We came in by foot. The only way that was accessible was to come in by foot.
Fullerton and his team, some Jackson-based, 48 hours after Katrina's wrath, checking what was left of houses, hoping for signs of life but expecting to recover more lifeless bodies. That's when he says he witnessed a miracle in a roof blown off of a house and resting in the middle of the road.
And we could hear voices from inside the roof. We found an elderly white female that she was black and blue from head to toe. She was terribly dehydrated, and she's obviously either had a dislocated hip and or maybe a broken pelvis.
Sergeant Fullerton and his men found a piece of debris.
It's a plain old scaffold board, and we put her on it, and we started carrying her out by hand.
A Coast Guard helicopter flying missions in the area spotted them and airlifted the victim to safety. Her identity remains a mystery to Fullerton.
All we know is that later on I checked with the Coast Guard, and everybody that they had rescued out of here, they had no deceased individuals.
And for a man who had already recovered 17 dead victims, that was very welcome news.
I was starting to see those faces over and over again when I tried to lay down and go to sleep.
Like other Gulf Coast-based troopers, Sergeant Fullerton has to deal with tremendous damage to his own home while continuing his law enforcement duties. Why do it, you ask?
If it's only that one person that you touch and make a difference to, the day was worth it. The day was worth it.
Braving the love bugs, volunteer Tom Johnson's arrival with a truck loaded with supplies is a blessing for Colville United Methodist and Wool Market Baptist churches, both of whom are in need of food.
That supply is beginning to be depleted, and so this is going to mean that we're going to be able to continue to help folks in our community.
It wasn't anything from the government. These are churches and people from all parts of the United States.
A lot of them have nothing. No water, no food.
Christ United Methodist volunteers have made 350 runs to the coast, a network of churches working together to help those in need.
Without it, a lot of folks wouldn't have anything. This coast has been destroyed.
For some, the church's aid has been their only means of survival, especially for those living in nearby Eagle Point, where Katrina's storm surge spilled over the banks of the Little Biloxi River. The Neal family lost everything.
Well, the water was, as you can see on the inside, about 8 feet, 8.5 feet.
Tell me, is your house insured for that kind of flooding?
No, sir, we were not in the flood zone, so we didn't have flood insurance, as most of these houses out here, so no flood insurance.
Here at Eagle Point, a number of people built their houses up on these big concrete pylons, hoping that if a flood ever came, they would be okay. But as you can see, Hurricane Katrina went way over those pylons. Every house on this street was destroyed. Everywhere you look, homes, material items, and family dreams lost. And that's just the small stuff.
Talking to the neighbors, we hear over 20 people died out here.
Box by box, these are the pieces that will help hurricane survivors put their lives back together.
Without those supplies, we'd have had a lot of folks who would have done without for the past couple of weeks. This has helped us to be able to minister to people, be able to help them have a little hope.
Although many now plan to move out of the coastal area, most say they couldn't have done it on faith alone.
The church is a lifesaver. Everybody from Christ United Methodist in Jackson to Wood Market Baptist to Colville Methodist. And it's times like these where people really see what the church is all about.
Ice, water, and meals were in high demand in Mendenhall. Crews there stacked boxes into cars, helping those lacking the basics.
It's really bad when you ain't got electricity.
But many rural residents can't get to Mendenhall in time.
There's a lot of people in these rural communities that need food, that don't have the gas or the means to go get any food.
So Simpson County Supervisor Sammy Welch loads up his truck and drives supplies to those who need it. His first stop, Panola.
People out there have no idea how convenient we had it. I mean, we had electricity, we had water, and now we have nothing.
We really have no complaints compared to the people down on the coast in New Orleans and places, so I'm completely satisfied.
Further south in Shivers, food and water is welcome.
Our hearts are just full. We just appreciate it.
Water is slowly returning, and the need here is still great. Locals are stockpiling supplies. Government aid arrived 4 days after Katrina hit, but a kindergarten teacher from Kentucky showed up just after the hurricane with a truck full of food. He fed nearly 500 people.
And there was also a 5th grade boy who had heard about it from word of mouth through his other teachers talking, and he collected $54 in pennies and quarters and nickels, and they also brought that down in a shoebox for us.
Now local leaders are going door to door with supplies.
We're trying to take care of you.
All right, you're doing a good job. That's great.
Mabel Bass's water and phone service just returned. She doesn't drive.
It's a blessing. The Lord has been good to us.
The President Casino, that barge back there, the boat, used to be over here where that lighthouse is.
Long gone are the days where casinos have to worry about ending up across the street after a hurricane. In one man's opinion, Governor Barber's signature means one thing.
The biggest economic boon this state has ever witnessed.
Larry Gregory is the executive director of the Mississippi Gaming Commission. He says he's already heard from casino execs ready to come back bigger and better.
I think you're going to see large corporations coming in that are not here right now, ready to put the shovel in the ground.
Several existing casinos are talking about building billion-dollar mega resorts, which would feature much more than gaming.
If you've noticed in Las Vegas, 65% of their gross gaming revenues are coming from non-gaming entities now. So I think that's the direction that our Gulf Coast will be taking.
Gregory is quick to point out he wants Mississippi to stand alone from the rest.
We are not wanting to be another Las Vegas. We're not wanting to be another Atlantic City. We are wanting to be a family-oriented entertainment for tourists to come to enjoy themselves for 2 or 3 days.
He believes half the casinos will rebuild on pilings right where they are. The rest will move to dry land and build high enough to avoid those big tidal waves. High structures that will match the high expectations of a new and improved coastline.
A tent full of relief supplies blocks the entrance to the Waveland Police Department. You can't go in anyway. It was destroyed by Hurricane Katrina. Officers work out of a mobile command trailer for now, but the calm demeanor of these lawmen and women belies the sheer horror they experienced that historic Monday morning.
I felt that it was bad enough that we need to get the officers to take cover. The winds were getting up and the weather was deteriorating.
The men and women felt duty-bound to ride out the storm, and the only way out of the station was the front door. But it had been locked and windows boarded up to keep the wind out. Nobody expected the water.
Water was about 3 foot up the door when we tried to get out of that. The force of the water, you could not get out of the front door. We had a Coke machine in the front lobby. Well, that's floating at us, hitting you. You're having to push that off of you. Thank God that it was daytime and you could see what you were doing.
There were 27 city employees trapped inside the Little Waveland Police Department. Many of them made their way out here to this shrub, a shrub the police chief says could easily be called the shrub of life.
Yes, sir. We had, at one point, we had 14 of us in this bush, and 13 of us on the roof of the police department for about 8 hours. You can see the scratch marks on it from the feet and hands and elbows, and that saved quite a few people's lives. I know I still have nightmares about it. I've talked to some of the other guys, and it's you wake up and you feel like you're underwater.
This day, there were plenty of hugs and handshakes for members of the Orange County, Florida Sheriff's Department. They were the first on the scene to help Waveland police get through it. And a little more than a month after Katrina hit, it was time to go home.
We started at ground zero, which is Waveland, Mississippi, and flew along the coast in a northeasterly direction. The camera is aimed west. The biggest difference you see 1 month later is much of the debris has been cleaned up, and all of the roads have been bulldozed so you can drive down them. If you don't know the streets, you'd be lost because the street signs are gone. The day after the storm, there was debris everywhere, all the way back to the railroad tracks, which is about a quarter of a mile from the beach. Tons of debris have now been moved, but the only people who could live along the beach would be those willing to sleep in tents. As you go up the beach toward Bay St. Louis, it is a strange sight to see these towns with very few people visible from the air and just a few vehicles moving around. The Waveland Municipal Complex is still just a concrete slab under the Waveland Water Tower, which amazingly survived this storm. No work has been done on the bridge that used to go from Bay St. Louis over to Henderson Point and past Christiane. It's just the way it was the day after the storm, and we now know it will cost $200 million to rebuild this bridge. The railroad bridge, which was also completely destroyed, has not been worked on since the storm and will have to be completely replaced.
It's not a typical start to the day. But nothing typical is happening here. It's 5:30 in the morning, and already the volunteers are arriving, alert and ready to work.
It's kind of hard to believe that it was a month ago today that all of our lives were interrupted by Hurricane Katrina.
Before they begin, a moment of silence for those they're helping. Then the work begins. That's 66-year-old volunteer Mary Louise Shaw behind the table saw. She's a Habitat regular.
The more I do it, the more I love it. And I just think it's a wonderful cause, and we're helping people get new homes, perhaps for the first time in their lives.
The houses here have names like Compassion, Victory. Volunteer Doug Shade is here from Phoenix. We found him working on a house called Grace.
I'm here because, well, God put it on my heart to be here. I'm not the kind of guy that normally steps out and does this sort of thing, but after Katrina, I just felt that I needed to go help, and Habitat for Humanity was the cause that I wanted to help.
Habitat's local director says each volunteer has his or her own reasons for being here, motivated by something much more powerful than a paycheck.
One woman who was an evacuee from New Orleans told me, she said, it's therapeutic for me to be here hammering on these houses. I had to do this.
They've never met the families who will soon make memories inside these walls, but it doesn't matter. Putting the walls up has its own reward.
Truck bays are mostly empty at MEMA's relief staging area, a contrast from September when trucks loaded with supplies jammed the docks. But looks can be deceiving.
We're actually moving more.
Becky Baum organizes deliveries, grouping in-demand items where they can be packed up and shipped out to distribution centers in the hardest-hit counties.
We stage our orders during the daytime, pack them up at night, ship them out first thing in the morning.
But what they're sending is changing as coastal residents return home. Household cleaners and kitchen supplies are in high demand.
I mean, that fills up one day and the next day it's empty again.
Topping the list of most needed donations are canned foods, dishes, blankets, and bedding. Tools and garbage bags are also needed to help people clean up and rebuild.
If you were a brand new homeowner and you went into Walmart and you had nothing to your name, what would you buy? That's what we need to send them, anything and everything.
So far, businesses from around the world have stocked the warehouse full, but Baum says the supplies in stock, from tortilla chips to water, are not always what people need.
People want to donate. If churches want to work together, good projects would be for everybody to bring a set of dishes and donate a group of dishes.
As forklifts ready Thursday's shipments from companies across the country, Baum hopes Mississippians and local businesses will help fill the gap to provide what their neighbors need most.